In 1929, a 12-year-old named Robert Bloch moved to Milwaukee just as the Great Depression settled over the city. The reality of daily life was bleak. To escape the economic misery surrounding him, Bloch turned to local newsstands. He saved his allowance to buy pulp magazines with vibrant, lurid covers, offering cheap portals to other worlds. His specific obsession was Weird Tales magazine. Inside its pages, he discovered the old weird fiction of a relatively unknown Providence author named H.P. Lovecraft, who wrote about a vast, different universe, ruled by ancient, alien deities. The cosmic dread of Lovecraft's imagination offered a stark contrast to the crushing financial despair of the 1930s Midwest. These stories of a vast, uncaring universe resonated so deeply that the teenager decided he had to reach out to the author directly. In 1933, the 15-year-old Bloch wrote a fan letter to his idol, asking where he could find older, out-of-print stories. To his absolute surprise, the eccentric author actually wrote back. He even lent Bloch the rare manuscripts he had asked for. That single reply ignited an expansive correspondence. Lovecraft took him under his wing, reviewing his early drafts, offering detailed critiques, and pushing him toward professional publication. Under this guidance, Bloch's writing improved rapidly. By 17, he was a published professional. But as he plotted a new story featuring a mystic based on his mentor, he faced an awkward dilemma. How do you ask your hero for permission to brutally murder him in print? This exchange completed Bloch's transformation from a passive fan in the Midwest to an active peer in the weird fiction community. It also set the stage for one of literature's most bizarre inside jokes. In 1935, Bloch conceptualized a story called The Shambler from the Stars. The plot followed a young writer who visits a Rhode Island mystic to help translate a forbidden book of dark magic. Before publishing, Bloch mailed Lovecraft, formally requesting his blessing to kill off the recognizable alter ego. Lovecraft's reply was enthusiastic. He sent back an official, signed document granting full authority to portray, murder, annihilate, disintegrate, transfigure, metamorphose, or otherwise manhandle his own character. Bloch executed the warrant perfectly. In the published story, the mystic is gruesomely devoured by an invisible, bloated star vampire. This playful exchange of murders solidified the mythos as a living, collective world, where the boundaries of the fiction were defined by the collaborative contributions of the entire circle. Far from being offended, Lovecraft was delighted by his fictional demise and started plotting a retaliation. This timeline maps out their literary duel. The first strike lands here, Bloch's The Shambler from the Stars in 1935. The very next year, Lovecraft fired back with The Haunter of the Dark, the only story he ever dedicated to a specific individual. Lovecraft created a protagonist named Robert Blake, a thinly veiled version of Bloch. To make the joke land perfectly, he gave the character Bloch's real street address in Milwaukee, right before subjecting him to a terrifying death by staring into the eyes of an ancient cosmic entity. This reciprocal murder served as the ultimate compliment in the weird fiction community, cementing the Cthulhu Mythos as a shared, living universe. The playful exchange came to an abrupt halt. In March 1937, Lovecraft suddenly died of cancer. He was only 46 years old. The loss devastated the 20-year-old Bloch. He had never met Lovecraft in person, but he considered the older writer his primary literary and professional guide. It took years, but Bloch eventually returned to their shared sandbox. In 1950, he published a story titled The Shadow from the Steeple. This new story intentionally tied up the loose narrative threads left behind by Lovecraft's The Haunter of the Dark. The two authors had managed to write a complete, cross-authored trilogy. Writing that final chapter served a dual purpose for Bloch. It was a method of grieving his lost mentor, and it marked his graduation from an eager apprentice to a master of the mythos. Following Lovecraft's death, Bloch's focus began to shift. He famously observed that the most terrifying monster wasn't a ghoul or an alien, but the ordinary person standing right next to you. He began stripping away the supernatural elements of his earlier work, replacing outer gods with the everyman psychopath found in the hard-boiled styles of writers like Raymond Chandler. Yet the hallmarks of his apprenticeship remained. He kept these surprise endings and the sense of inevitable doom he'd absorbed from Lovecraft, using them to craft the suspense in his 1959 novel, Psycho, later immortalized on screen by Alfred Hitchcock. The same Providence gent who encouraged a boy to write about star vampires provided the technical foundation for the suspense that would eventually redefine modern horror. That playful 1935 letter wasn't just a joke. It was the first step in a career that bridged the gap between archaic cosmic monsters and the grounded human terrors of the modern world.